Friends, fans, and fine folk, grab your drinks and snacks and come down to the campfire for this short rest. And my friend, Devon! And an entrance as well. Oh wow! You're kicking it off with making the people in the podcast version feel sorry for not watching. Because
you got to consume all the media.
You got to consume
to get all the gags.
So if you're listening on podcast,
I'm gonna
you gotta go find it on
half
YouTube.
the bits. Half the bits will be physical today.
I love it. Welcome in, Devon. It's great to have you here. How are you doing?
I'm great. It's like I said, it's really good to see you again. We had so much fun at Gen Con.
Yeah, man, it was a great time. I really enjoyed it. It was really good to meet you. I've told the story of meeting you a few times because it makes me sound good. Because the way that we met was in a party, sort of a scenario, and I was talking to somebody, and then I happened to mention in passing that I was pretty good at accents. And then she says, "Oh yeah, where am I from then?" And I was like, "I'll listen to you talk for a little bit longer, and I'll let you know." And so she continued with the conversation, and like 5 minutes later, I go, "I've got it. That word you just used gave you away. So you're from Northern Ireland. I'd say probably Belfast, but you have a hint of American in you, which indicates you've either been here for a while or somebody in your immediate family is American. But given the nature of certain words that you're using in your vocabulary that aren't Americanisms, I'd say that it's the latter. You're from Belfast, but you've got someone in your immediate family that's American." And she went, "Yeah, my dad's American and I'm from Belfast." And then
I'm telling you.
And then I saw this face just enter my peripheral like this. And go. And then you were like, I think your words were, "That was some Sherlock Holmes shit right there."
I loved it. It literally was like, listen, you're kind of downplaying because it was done with such a beat of confidence, lacking arrogance. It was just done in almost such a scientific way, conversation. And I was watching this, and I was like, this is like some CSI level knowledge. It blew me away. And I have a friend who loves language and loves accents and like studies them. And immediately I was like, I need to introduce you to someone.
The very next thing, you were like, bam, you just grabbed your friend who was in the middle of a conversation with somebody else and was like, "Do it again. Do it to him."
Do the trick.
It was great because I was like, "Oh, nice to meet these guys." And then like I think the next day or something, I saw you guys just walking around with like VIP badges on for the after party of something, and I was like, "Who are they? What's the deal there?" And they were like, "Oh, it's the guys who did the Start Playing." I was like, "Oh, I know Start Playing."
I know, it's so funny. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, good way of getting introduced to somebody. Hey, I'm good at accents. I then told that anecdote in my panel because I did a panel at PAX Australia this year that was all about voice work and accents and like how to make a character for a TTRPG game, and how accent is such a little part of that. There's so much more to a voice than that. And I told that anecdote, and then afterwards, for like the public questions section, most of the questions were just, "Where am I from?" And I was like, "Oh god, I've started something."
Speaking of like accents and actual play, I was talking to one of my players, and they told me this incredible quote from Emily Axford, because she had a character that had this like really indiscernible accent. It sounded like 6 different accents kind of jumbled into one, and someone's like, "What accent is it?" She's like, "She's from the moon. That's what moon people sound like."
I love that sort of answer whenever I'm doing an accent in any kind of a again, because one of the accents I've never been good at is Dutch. Like and in my games I tend to leave all of my races are based on a language in the real world so that I can have some sort of internal consistency to it, so it sounds similar at least. So like my Dwarvish is based on German and Elvish is based on Welsh and all this sort of stuff. And the giant language in my world is based on Dutch, so if I'm needing to write the name of a giant place or whatever, it's a Dutch. But I can't do a Dutch accent, so I tend to just, whenever I'm role-playing a giant, they just end up being German.
That
And then people say, and then I get comments under videos, people saying like, "Oh, it's not, your Dutch accent is terrible," and I'd be like, "Well, it's not a Dutch accent; it's a giant accent."
Yeah, exactly.
And my
Obviously.
giant accent is perfect.
That's
exactly how.
Shut up,
sound.
nerd.
It's my world, and that's how giants sound. It's not a Dutch accent.
In my world, giants sound like this.
That it sounds a little bit like this.
In my world, giants sound like the Swedish Chef.
Oh,
so,
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, makes sense. Rob is a tad quiet. Interesting. I am all the way up. Let me.
Here's the thing. I actually don't think you're a tad quiet. I think I'm just very loud.
I am barely reaching the yellow. So I think my headphones. I think my sounds have done the thing that it sometimes likes to do, where, despite not touching it at all, the internal device of the microphone under properties and everything has turned itself. Yeah, it's turned itself way down to level 53 from like 80.
Oh, look at that! Oh my gosh.
Yeah, wow, I don't know.
So smooth too.
It does that sometimes. All right, yeah, that's better, and then I can turn myself down a little more. All right, this should be far better. It's all right. I'm not the one who edits these things. Good job editing all of that consistent sound. Fancy. Thank you very much. You do a mean halfling accent? Nice. All right, so I like to start, starting as we've already started, but I like to start with saying if this is a short rest, then it sort of implies that we are on some sort of a quest, on some sort of a mission.
Oh yeah.
And we need to be having a short rest from that mission. So what are we having a short rest from? What quest are we on?
Let's say that we're. I like being on the quest. Actually reminds me of a quest we were on at Gen Con. It was the night where we threw the party in the lobby, and we had to get booze in time for the party. Because the stores were closing soon.
Yeah,
it was only like a small.
Yeah, that's right.
And we split the party.
It was genuinely like that. Is it Usher, the song? The after the party, it's the after party, and then after the after party, it's the hotel lobby. It was very much like that. We were at a party, and then there was an after party after the after party, and then that shut as well. And we were like back to the hotel, and we were all just in this huge hotel lobby. And somebody on the way was like, "Have we got any booze?" And so we sent off some people to like go find some. Was it Kelly? Was it? Yeah.
It was Rahul. It was the person I introduced you to when we first met.
Yeah, Rahul went off and grabbed some. I think he came back with sliders as well, didn't he? Did he come back with some food?
Yeah. Oh, I ordered some seamless right at the same time. I was like, we're gonna need food. You can't have an after party without food. And he had 8 minutes to get into an Uber, drive to a liquor store, and then get this food. Like everything seemed against us.
As they're closing, shutters coming down. Yeah. He did the Indiana Jones roll under the door. Throw some money at the guy. So we're on that quest.
That's exactly what it was.
We're on the quest. We've somehow got some time to have a short rest during that quest though. This very time sensitive quest. That is very D&D to be on a very time sensitive quest and be like, can I just have a long rest though? Can we do it tomorrow?
Yeah. I would like the booze, but can I take a short rest?
What are we eating and drinking on this short rest? IRL or in game? I've just got water IRL. You got any drinks, any snacks?
I got nothing. Actually, nope. I got no snacks. I got no. I'm like 18 steps away from the fridge though. So
okay. if you need it, may chance.
And I'm also wireless too, so I could just move around. I could just. Like you can still hear me. I'm like off camera. I'm like
almost you can go all the way over to the fridge. You could give us
I'm going to the fridge.
Give us an ASMR tour of the fridge.
Oh, look at this! Okay, you can't.
This is going to work perfectly for the podcast. This is where the podcast people do benefit. Over
you have to guess what this is. Okay, you have to guess what that was.
It sounded like a very small hiss. It was like a can opening, but it was like I don't think it. Was it a drink of sorts?
It was. You got that right. I was wondering if you could, just like you can with linguists, if you could just from the sounds, like no.
Maybe in person.
Well, that had 80% carbonation in it, so
maybe in person I would have been able to tell the size of the can and whether or not it had some sort of a head, whether it was a beer or something. All right, so we've set up our short rest. Let's start with the name. I like to start with the names of the companies. You've actually got two that we're going to be chatting about today. We've got Total Party Chill and Start Playing. Obviously, Start Playing Games. That's a pretty self-explanatory where the name for that one came from. I imagine. Is there more of a story to it? Sometimes I assume something's self-explanatory, and it's actually got quite a history.
It was one of those things where it was a stand-in name. And then we
Yeah,
just
yeah, and
realized
then
it
you,
worked so
you
well.
just, yeah, I love that. When you start with something and you've been saying it for so long that you're like, that's kind of just the name now.
Yeah, I guess this. You know what's funny too is our logo is like a modified stock graphic that I like edited. Like we bought this graphic and then I like made some changes and like we've just never changed it. And now we're kind of stuck with it because everyone knows the hat logo for
Yeah,
us.
that's
So
amazing.
I'm like, oh, that's our logo now. This is who we are.
So I guess before we jump into things too proper, just for anybody who's from my community who doesn't know who the hell you are, give us your sort of elevator pitch. Who are you, Devon?
Yeah. My name's Devon Schulich. I am the co-founder of Start Playing. Start Playing is the #1 platform for finding games, groups, and game masters, all run by professionals. It truly makes it so easy to find your next gaming group. Just select the times that work for you, the games you want to play, and then pick from hundreds of games happening on your schedule. You can tell I've never said that before.
Word for word for word, pitch and
Um,
intonation. And
I'm also the creator of Total Party Chill, which is an actual play studio located here in San Francisco. And we try to focus on being, innovative and fun. And we also make like products. We make like D&D things. Like we have a player mat, which is like a 32-inch mouse pad that has all the 5th edition rules on it. So he's like, how does combat work? How does spellcasting work? Conditions. So kind of like a dungeon master screen, but for players, and it's a mat that sits in front of them.
that's
And so we make
awesome.
stuff like that, and
Yeah.
we make actual plays.
It's amazing. You definitely should check out that mat. It's clear that a lot of design work went into it being like what information is too much information and what information is
Yeah.
vital. Which information do people actually want to use? And was there like a playtest thing of like, did you have a few different like renditions of it that were like, do people actually use this part?
Dude,
Do they reference this or that?
here's what's really funny. So I've had these play mats for about 4 years. Because I made them just for my players. I actually
Right,
never thought to
right.
sell them. And someone came to my studio, was like, "Oh, can I buy one of these?" I was like, "I don't." And then I literally
And
went
you're like,
onto
I
TikTok.
guess
I was like, "Would you
so.
guys buy these?"
Yeah.
And the first comment was actually one of the chatters here, Jurassic Spark, and they're like, "Devin, you have to sell these." And I was like, "Okay, cool." And then yeah, people love them, and so we did make a few changes, mostly because I am riddled with grammatical errors myself. And so the first 100 had like a few like typos and like weird
That's
spacing,
awesome.
and then I was like, I'm gonna hire a layout designer.
Hey,
And so
they,
yeah,
when they print a postage stamp with the airplane upside down, it becomes billions of dollars. So you know
yeah,
those first ones with the typos, they're just collector's items.
they're collector's editions now.
So this is where you where people would know you from. But like,
Yeah,
let's start before that. Like,
yeah.
how did you get into it in the first place? How did you? Which
Um,
one? Total Party Chill came before Start Playing, I assume. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And
That
how
came
did Total
first.
Party Chill come about?
Um, so I was just running games a lot, and I had my weekly game, and I had a buddy who worked at Twitch, Nick Catania, and he was like, "Oh, I've always wanted to play D&D." I was like, "Well, you should come to one of our game nights, and you could be like a guest player. You'll be like a special guest." And he's like,
Nice.
"Okay, cool." So he came, and he before this, he's like, "I've watched a lot of D&D. Like, I love watching D&D on Twitch." And so he came and played. He's like, "Wow, that was the most fun I've ever had." I don't know if you've ever thought about streaming your games, but this was more entertaining than most of the stuff I watch. You should definitely think about it. And that one seed kind of planted in my
That
my
seed,
head,
yeah,
in like 2016, something
yeah,
like that, 2017. And I was like, okay. But we all played in person, so I was like, how can I make it so we can all like stream? Like, how would we
yeah.
do that? And there at the time there was no like FAQ, there was no videos on like how to do. It
Right.
was all videos on like how to do remote streaming, but not like in person. Now there is. I actually made one, but
Nice.
so it was a lot of like guess and check, reading articles, like what's OBS, and then I was like, oh, I need to buy a lot of equipment, and I was like, I need to find a way to like, finance this, because like it was kind of staggering to start like day one, and around that same time, I was just running D&D games for like any friend that wanted to play, and so at least probably once a week, I had like a learn to play D&D night where like if you've never played before, I'm running a game and I had someone in there that was like, this is so much fun. I would love it if my coworkers could do this. Would you come and run it for my office? And in my head, I'm thinking, dude, I don't know your coworkers. Like that doesn't sound fun to me.
Yeah.
And then he finished by saying, we have a budget for like around like $500 for things like this. And I replied, that's crazy because that's exactly what I charge for that.
Yeah, I was gonna say. Well, what a good coincidence. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I normally am like $550, but I can give you
a
cool
homie,
guys
so
discount.
You know. So I did that, and then afterwards, like, I wonder if other people would do this.
Yeah.
And so I spent a weekend. I made a website, and I did a little bit of performance marketing, some SEO stuff, and within, I would probably say 2 weeks, I had my first booking, and within a month, I had 3, and by 2 months, I had like 5.
Wow. Okay. Nice.
And that's what's funny is like I was like, oh cool, like every time I had a game I bought new equipment for when we were gonna like start streaming, and then that's how we kind of started our studio and our space was from that. But then probably 6 months in, after we started streaming, I got an email from Bloomberg Business Week, and they wanted to interview me for this article about professional dungeon mastering. So they flew out. I met with the writer, Mary Pylan. She's a fantastic journalist and also a wonderful author, written a lot about games. And then the article comes out, and I got the feature. I was the bulk of the article.
Okay.
And it was awesome. I had this great photo they took of me, and over the next year, I got like 700 emails from other dungeon masters asking, "How can I do what you did?"
Yeah. And you're like,
and that's
don't. You got do what you did. Do what you do.
Yeah, right?
Like, I did what I did. You do what you did.
But it's also hard. It's like, like a lot of people don't know how to like build a website. A lot of people don't know how to like, set up like, a lot of stuff.
I was going to say, like, it sounds like you had a lot of skills that worked well for each, like all of that stuff. You just kind of threw it out there as like, I did some SEO stuff. And I was like, that's a lot of work just in itself, and for you it's like a hand wave. I just did something. It's like a lot of people wouldn't know where to begin.
Yeah, and so I created a newsletter, and then I created a Facebook group to like resource share with folks, and I wanted to make a website. I was like, I want to make this easy so people can find GMs, but I didn't have the time for it, and I was just like, I need to get like a nice nest egg of money to put into the technical side. And so I kind of just put it on the back burner. And that was until, March 17th, 2020, the first day of lockdown in San Francisco. I got a call from my co-founder and my now co-founder, and he was just kind of asking about like professional GMing, because 6 months ago, Nate got really into D&D, and him and his friend group always wanted to play D&D, but nobody wanted to GM. And so they would take turns. Every week, though, the person who was to be the DM would flake. And they're like, I didn't prep anything, or I don't really want to do it, so they'd play a board game instead. And he was in this thing called Y Combinator. It's this like very prestigious startup accelerator. Like the acceptance rate's lower than Harvard. Oh, wow. And he had this startup idea. And he ended up like just really disliking it. And he was looking at that classic advice, like, what do you do like when you don't like your idea? And it says, build solutions for problems you have. Like what problems do you have? And he kind of like thought about it. He's like, I wonder if there's a thing as like pro GMs.
Yeah.
He goes online, he searches professional dungeon masters, he finds this article of me in Bloomberg.
Oh yeah.
And he calls me and he starts kind of asking me these questions like, what are you building, man? And he's like, oh, I don't know, I have this idea. And then I told him like, I have this idea. And we're on the phone for 6 hours talking about like what it could be. And the next day he calls me, do you want to be my co-founder and build this with me? I was like, absolutely.
That's amazing.
And that's how Start Playing started.
That's amazing, man. Because it is probably the most frequently asked question I get is like, well, maybe other than just very broad generic questions that are impossible to answer. Like, have you got any tips for D&D? And I'm like, yeah, Yeah, I do it for a living. Yeah. I've been doing it for 7 years. Like, of course, I've got tips for D&D. Ask me some specifics, and I'll give you some specifics. I'm not. I just gotta pull out just random bucket full of 7,000 tips about D&D. Yeah, I'll have this one. So that's probably my most frequently asked question. But my second most frequently asked question is, how do I find someone to play with? And my answers are usually like, you're never gonna have better time D&D than with your friends. Like, if your friends are into it, or you can get them into it, then that's going to be the best D&D you can have. So first and foremost, try and get your friends into it, introduce them to it, float the idea. Some of them might actually already play and just haven't told you because of the stigma around it or whatever, and they think it's too nerdy, or maybe they just haven't thought to bring it up or whatever. or they did play it back at college and haven't played it in years. So just bring it up, and if they're hesitant, then play some board games and get them into it that way, maybe. But failing that, or maybe you're just like isolated geographically from your friends, it's hard to get together with them, whatever. I just now since hearing about Start Playing, when I first heard about it, I was like, oh, brilliant! It saves me so much time. And like I was like, try this, because I used to just be like, oh, try. There's certain like Discord servers that are good for it, or there's like you can ask around in like Roll20, I think, has a section of it that could be useful for this, and none of them were like dedicated to it. And then I heard about Start Playing when somebody suggested it to me and was like, hey, if you're ever in need of more more money to supplement your income, if you got on Start Playing, your games would be snapped up like that. I was like, yeah, I'll keep that in mind. And since hearing about it, I was like, hey, just check this out. Just check out Start Playing. They've got it's dedicated to exactly what you're asking me. How to find a game.
Yeah, I mean, it is the biggest problem people face, right? It's like it's just so hard to find like places to actually play.
So what sort of size is Start Playing now? How did it grow? Did it grow immediately? Like as soon as it started, like it took off, or did it have like a period of like, oh boy, is this gonna work?
Yeah, so when we first started, we designed it to be for online and in person. Because when we first started, I was like, yeah, I'll co-found with you. Plus, we have like 6 weeks of this lockdown. We have tons of time to work on it, not knowing it'd be 16 months, not 6 weeks.
Yeah.
So we also originally designed it just for groups. So it's like, hey, find a GM and like here's a game you can play with your friends. And it seems so obvious in hindsight to like make it for like individual people. But we're like, oh yeah, like you have a group of you and 4 friends, you book this GM, and I was just like thinking about it one day, and I was just kind of like reading a Reddit post about someone trying to find a game, and then I was like, hey, let's change it to be slotted sessions. And that's the term we use for like one person books, and you fill up a tired table of 5 people each booking individually. And the moment we did that, the first week we did it, we started getting bookings. We started with like I think like 50 GMs from that list of 700 that were like, yeah, I'll take a chance on this. And like every day we were like releasing a new like feature, like, oh, maybe we do this, maybe we do that. And so I would say by September when we launched, we were GMs were making around $10,000 a month in GMV, like gross margin. And now since we've started, game masters have made over $15 million running games and Start Playing.
Jeez, man.
Like,
and how many game masters are you looking at usually? Like how many people
there's around like 2,000 active every month. And it's a huge variety of like, of GMs. Like there's GMs that are like running like 1 game a week, and there's other GMs that are running like, 12.
Yeah, and doing it like full time, like session after session after session.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's incredible. And I love that I love that it allows you to sort of set your own price as well, to be like, hey, it's not worth my time to run a game for less than this per head or whatever.
Right? We don't want to be like an Uber where it's like we tell you what you have to charge.
Yeah. Excellent. And it's fantastic. I'm really glad it's going so well. Take me back even further. How did you first get into TTRPGs in the first place? Have you always liked them? Have you always been a nerd? Or did you discover your nerddom later?
So it's funny, like I actually just like unlocked this core memory this past year when I realized that my first tabletop role-playing game experience was my mother, and she was GMing for me in one of the old choose your own adventure books that had a dice rolling component to it. So there was like this one subset where you get to roll D6s, and I was like 4 or 5, and I saw this book at a bookstore, and I was like, "This looks cool." I think it had like an orc or a dragon on it, um, and so she would read it to me because I couldn't read that. Yeah, yeah, like one of these old ones.
The Dragon's
And
Den. Yeah.
and so she read it to me. I have these memories being at like round table, like listening to her tell me about like the orcs in the trees and like me rolling to fight them off. It was a lot
Nice.
of fun. And it wasn't until like later, like in middle school, I found out that D&D was a thing, and I was immediately hooked. The first thing I bought after like playing at the comic book store was the Dungeon Master's Guide.
Oh, nice. So
I was
you
like, I want to be the DM.
and you went. Yeah, I was gonna say you went Dungeon Master's Guide rather than Player's Handbook immediately.
Yeah,
That's
even
interesting.
though
So
even
you
though
knew
like
right from
most
the
of the
beginning,
rules I
like,
needed.
yeah, I know
Yeah,
most of the things are in the Player's Handbook, even if it's done. Kind of a misnomer, really, isn't it? Because it's not really just the player.
yeah,
Like Player's Handbook is just the handbook.
yeah,
So you knew right from the very beginning. I want to be the one. I want to be the one sort of driving it. I want to be the GM. I want to be behind the screen,
yeah,
and coming up with the stories and running people through it. That's
yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
Did it stay as D&D for you, or did you like start dabbling with other TCRPGs as well, like
I
from an
didn't
early
start
age?
dabbling with it like until like 2016 with other tabletop RPGs.
Right.
And it was mainly uh, when I was in middle school, like there was like there was internet, but there wasn't really internet. Like you had to be like so hardcore.
Yeah.
Like if me myself at the age of like in my mid 30s in the 90s, I would be like scouring the forums, learning all I could. But when
Yeah.
you're in middle school, like that's all they had at the game stores. So
Yeah.
that's all I thought really existed. You know. Um, and so I didn't know about any other tabletop RPGs till I got back into D&D in like 2015.
Right.
And I was like, oh, look at all these other systems. And like I had bought the Pathfinder starter box for Pathfinder 1E.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's probably, and then obviously when I started like streaming and I started, running games professionally is when I started exploring more systems.
Yeah.
And that became really fun. That's when I feel like I really got into like my golden age of
Yeah.
tabletop gaming.
Did you stick with D&D the whole time, or did you have like a break from like where you just went away from it through like your teen years or whatever, and where you didn't play for ages?
Yeah, middle school, like right when high school started, I
Yeah.
kind of dropped off on it and didn't pick it back up till like 2015.
So
It was mainly because like
what were you do like what were you focusing on for like your career, and what skill base did you? Because I imagine you've put a lot of that into use doing what you
yeah.
do now. But like, what was it you studied
So
and things?
in high school, I don't think I studied anything. I was too obsessed with crushes in high school, and I think that's what led me away from D&D
Right. Yeah.
was romantic interests. But kind of after high school, a lot of what I had done is either in operations side or kind of creative direction work.
Right.
I had in like 2008, I took over as through sweat equity with a buddy of mine. We had a few stores in San Francisco, and they were kind of like art gallery clothing stores. So there was like local
Okay.
purveyors. Every month we have an art show. We do these special events. It was really cool. It was really big community spaces. And then I got very involved in like local politics
Yeah.
with merchant associations, neighborhood associations.
Right.
I was the president for one for 5 years. Doing beautification projects for my neighborhood,
Right.
that kind of stuff. And so I spent a lot of time like community building.
Yeah.
And that was always like when I look back on my career, it was either building communities, or it was building like things that people are rabid about. I don't know if you've ever heard of Chubby's shorts. They're like the shorts like your dad used to wear, like these short
All right.
shorts. So after I closed down all my stores, I worked for Everlane, Dolls Kill, and then Chubby's, and all these places had like intensely loyal communities. And so I've always been drawn to those kind of places. And so I did some marketing, some product, like the e-commerce stuff for Chubby's for 4 years, and that was the last job I had before I left to start playing.
And was with Start Playing just being sort of fortuitous that this guy found your article and reached out? Were you already in a position in your life of being like, what is my next thing? What am I? Were you looking for
Yeah.
something to do, and then it just kind of fell into your lap?
Yeah, I was very okay with where I was, but I was just kind of hungry for more. I felt like a little
Yeah.
stalled. And I was thinking like, maybe I'll start um trying to find something new.
Hmm.
Just because I wanted a new challenge. And I tell you what, this one phone call, everything how it fell into place did feel like picture perfect.
Yeah.
Um, and there's this idea like of luck, right? And like the idea of luck is you could increase your chances of luck by spreading yourself out more. And that
Yeah.
means like being in more places, being in more opportunities where you meet new people. And the more you do this, the more opportunities you'll have.
Hmm.
And so I've always been a big fan of that. Like I say yes to a lot of things
Yeah.
because it's either good for the plot or
Yeah.
like you never know what opportunity will be there.
Yeah, exactly. I say yes to too many things. Sometimes that's the problem.
Yeah.
When you're like, oh, now I'm spread too thin. You gotta know how to spread yourself quite far without spreading yourself too
Yeah.
thin. So your division of your time at that point like became how much time did you devote to start playing over Total Party Chill? Like did that seem to was it a zero sum game? Did you find that you had to put in less time to Total Party Chill to put more into start
You
playing?
know, I don't think so because total like our first users were Total Party Chill,
Yeah,
the community. We are actually like I gave everyone who was in our Discord server. I was like, hey, like you get a free game on this
nice.
platform. Sign up for whatever you want. Tell me
Yeah,
what it is. I'll get you in there. They helped a ton in getting it started and like
yeah.
being a feedback in those early users. Um, and so and the fact that like then my job went further into tabletop, I only think it allowed me, I had to pull back on some things, but it just meant like the stuff I refocused on and put like 100% into
Yeah.
was, that much better. We stopped really streaming as much as we used to. We used to be
Hmm.
like an entirely streamed
Yeah.
channel. And now we record everything, we do high production edits, and we put it on YouTube. And our last show that we released, people really loved, and so
Hmm.
it's just kind of like we shift things, but we don't like lose how much we put into them.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just like you're still putting in 100%.
Yeah,
Just means what you're putting it into is different, but
yeah,
you're not diminish. You're not trying to keep everything the same and then just having to
yeah.
diminish all of them a little bit. So
Instead of 10 things at 10%, it's like two things that
yeah, yeah,
yeah.
makes sense. So then what was sort of the next steps like after it started to take off? Like what was the more recent past of both Total Party Chill and Start Playing like?
Yeah. So I think when once it started to take off, we knew it was taking off when we got VC venture capital backers.
Right.
I'm actually right now. I'm at their offices. We get to use the office once a week, and that was A16, and they're this like incredibly like prestigious VC fund.
Right.
And we were able to raise from them. We didn't even have a deck. We just had like, hey, here's our dashboards of data, and they're like,
Right.
wow, yes. So we raised a seed round of 6.5 million to like build this company,
Damn.
which was like cool. We can hire, we can like pay ourselves a little
Mm.
bit, like we can build out this company.
Hmm.
And it's been a dream. Like I mean, I think the biggest accomplishment was like I looked last month and yeah, GMs have made over $15 million running games.
That's incredible. That's
You
incredible,
know,
man. That's so good. It's so good that there's a platform where people can do that because a lot of people do reach out and be like, how would you do it as a living? And I have to say, like, really consider it if that's
yeah,
something that you want
yeah,
to do because there's a very good chance that it's not going to be a living for a while. Like I can make a living doing it because I have all of the different avenues of revenue. I've got Twitch and
yeah,
I've got YouTube and I've got this and that and the other and the professional GMing is just a small portion of that for me. Whereas if people
yeah,
are wanting to do professional GMing, like GM for hire, and that's the primary income, then that's going to
yeah,
be like you're going to have to be aware that like it's difficult to find work and stuff before
yeah.
a product like Start Playing comes along, and you're like, okay, now I can actually just be a part of something that handles like finding my players, and now I can just
Yeah.
focus on the creative side of like actually running the games.
And here's the thing, it's brand new, right? Like we are 3 years old, but this is still such a new industry. Like we are
Hmm.
learning new
Oh
things,
yeah.
discovering new stuff all the time. Like It's not like when Uber started, it was like this weird, like, what is this? And like when
Yeah,
Airbnb started, like all these
yeah,
marketplaces, like um, the world needs to catch up a little bit.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
it's not like you can start now and be full time. Like some people can, some people won't.
yeah.
But it's something that like isn't standard yet. And I think over the next 5 years, it will become standard. Be like, oh yeah,
It just
I'm gonna get a
amuses
pro
me
gym
more
for
than
this.
anything. It just amuses me more than anything to think of like how hard it would be to be like a careers advisor at a high school these days, because like the kids would be like, yeah, I want to be a professional dungeon master, and they'd be like, I mean, it works. Like there's examples of it work. I guess you just do
Yeah,
anything, professional, whatever you want. There's enough of a niche
yeah,
now. We've got enough of a population in the globe
yeah,
that even if, however niche your industry is, if there's 50 people in the world,
yeah,
in the 8 billion people that are in the world, if there's only 50 people that are interested in doing the thing, but they are really into it, then maybe you
yeah.
can make a living doing it. Like it's
Right.
yeah, it's
And
really
then
crazy that I have
with
to tell people when they ask my job, I'm like, entertainer?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I always gauge like how much am I willing to have a conversation for the next 10 minutes about
Oh, I
what it is I
know.
do for a living.
Every time they're like, what kind of company did you found? And I'm like, and it's usually it's funny. Like I'll tell them like, oh, it's like Airbnb for Dungeons and Dragons, and I'll hear people go like, what? And they'll be like, okay, yeah, that's not a real thing.
Yeah, that's I barely understand what that means.
Um,
Sometimes I just make myself I just amuse myself by just saying dungeon master and giving no context and allowing them to decide which kind.
um, my wife roasted me so hard like a few months ago. We were on a road trip. We were just driving down to Santa Cruz, and we stopped at this place for breakfast. And the girl who's working the register, the young woman, um, she was blazed out of her mind. Her eyes were so red. She was so high, and this was in the place where you're at is exactly where you would expect the cashier just to be like super high.
Yeah,
It's like this very like crunchy granola surfer kind of breakfast spot.
yeah.
And
You'd
I'm
be
wearing
disappointed if
my
she wasn't.
hat. Yeah, right. I'm wearing a hat that says Dungeon Master. And there's these hats I made that I just thought were fun. And she looks at it and she looks at me and she looks at the hat and she's like, I like your hat. Is that like a sex thing? And my wife steps forward. She's like, not even close.
Kind of the opposite.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
like a never had sex thing.
yeah. If you've ever seen the IT crowd and you know that joke, my wife did that exact thing to me. It was
Oh, nice.
perfect.
Not even
Um,
close. That's great.
Uh, and with Total Party Chill, we are, we've kind of moved to this kind of like batch idea of filming. So we'll like
Hmm.
spend a weekend and we'll film like 8 episodes and then we'll cut them up and edit them. And we have an editor that's now like putting all of our stuff together and doing cool soundscapes. And that's allowing me to also like focus on like we're gonna do our first Kickstarter, and
Nice.
we're releasing a D&D album,
Oh, wow.
and like these really cool projects that like bring me a lot of joy. The D&D album, we're gonna start like we're gonna open up like the thing for it in January, but we worked with this band in LA and they're so talented. What they do is they do commercial music for like trailers and things like this, but they're all
Hmm.
amazing musicians that have been in bands forever. They said, "Hey, I would like to do like modern day music but that would be played in a D&D world." Um, so like,
That's pretty cool.
songs that the bard would sing about the
Yeah,
dragon that was
yeah, yeah, yeah.
defeated or tavern songs, but with modern instruments.
That's cool. Yeah,
Um,
that's having a hard time even sort of imagining what that would be because like music is so far out of my wheelhouse that I usually when I'm playing I'm like, hey, somebody put some battle music on. We're about to
right?
go into a battle.
Yeah.
I'm like, you got somebody one of you guys take the music job.
And I feel like most D&D like music, there's like music that's like almost like not Weird Al music, but it's like,
Hmm.
hey, this is the meta of Dungeons and Dragons. Like
Right.
we're
Yeah. Yeah.
talking
Yeah.
about playing Dungeons and Dragons, and then there's the other, which is like these are soundscapes, these are like
Yeah.
background. But this is like one song is called Dragon Come Forth, and it is it's a song that people sing about that evil dragon that was killed.
Nice.
And it's just like a rock anthem, you
Yeah.
know. We have another song that's like a song that like bards would sing that is like about like a friend who died and like they couldn't resurrect them in time. And like it's a remembering the fallen heroes of the party.
Yeah.
Um,
That's a cool
So
idea. I like that.
it's like in-world music.
In-world, yeah. Because now you mention it, a lot of D&D music you'll look for will be people like parody music that's rewriting the lyrics to popular pop songs about like playing Dungeons and Dragons. It'll be about rolling dice
Yeah,
and stuff. But yeah, songs that the bard can sing in character without it being like breaking the fourth wall or meta or stuff. I quite like that. That's a
exactly.
cool idea.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things that Total Party Chill's working on. And you say you've got
Yeah.
like so your film process with Total Party Chill is you all meet up and film just like for a huge chunk and then cut it into
like we did 3 weekends in a row, like 10-hour days for 2 of them, and then we did 1 weekend where we just like filmed on Saturday and Sunday, and we got through like 7 or 8 episodes.
right.
And each episode's like an hour long. We've kind of shifted away from like very long episodes. And the pacing works really well. And so then we like they edit down to about an hour. And then we have like some cool animators working on like some like great intros for us and some like nice animated graphics to happen during the show. And so it's really fun to like kind of up our
Production value, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
and
the
like,
stuff
that
that everybody kind of you long for that when you're starting out, and you're like, yeah, one day I'm gonna have an animated intro,
right?
and I'm gonna have proper music, but it's all it costs money.
I'm gonna put this on TikTok later, but we've always had the dopest intros, like even when we were live, and like I always loved a good intro, and I found like I think I've collected almost all of them, and I want to make a hypercut of all the cool intros we've done.
Yeah.
But dude, soundscaping, like I was just listening to some of the stuff my editor puts together, and like certain sounds for weapons that come through at the exact right time, and like he started putting camera shakes in when someone gets hit.
It can really make a difference. Like that's something that the Viva La Dirt League guys have started doing on our D&D as well. Like since they finally got the studio up and running, and they've got like a whole editing department and stuff now. People have now started commenting on, the soundscape coming through is really good. Like, so I'll because I'm kind of a jukebox myself. Like people, one of the things I get complimented on a lot is like my just like I'll be making all these sound effects, and people are like, oh cool, and now it's blending with the sound effect that I'm making, and then there's a hint of something underneath it that's actually just not from me. that like is the sound of something that the editor has put in as well. I'll talk about something smashing glass, and there'll just be like this subtle behind.
We also, I know Viva La Dirt does this too, but we just kind of switched to a multi-camera recording. So we were before we were doing all the live switching, but now every camera records independently. So like we're editing multi-camera views. Which makes a huge difference. Like it does. I love it.
Yeah, it makes a big difference. We most recent table session we had, unfortunately, we couldn't have any of the table camera. We've usually got a close up of me, close up of these two, close up of these two, a wide of all 5 of us, and a table cam. And the table cam was one of the things that got stolen when the studio got broken into. Like a week before we were due to the day before we were due to film, and then a week before we ended up filming because it got pushed back. They got broken into overnight, and a bunch of their equipment was stolen. So and the very next session, I'd gone and borrowed from a YouTube channel friend of mine, Brad from Cutting Words. I'd borrowed a bunch of his Dwarven Forge stuff to make this huge epic volcano fight where they were fighting a fire giant. There was a whole bunch of stuff, and I borrowed all of this stuff and like some volcano and lava and all sorts of things. And I like brought it out and was like, poof, and then Alan was like, "Oh man, we can't. We're not. We'll see that in the wide, I guess, but we don't have the close-up camera." I was like, "Great."
That's when you got to go back through and re-edit it.
Film it after the fact and moving stuff around.
We're gonna do that because like we are usually generally like theater of the mind, and I don't know where we're gonna get into a fight. And so we started like looking at like one of our producers, Kiwi, and was like, "Hey, like this fight was really good. Can you build out the terrain for this and react it with the actual minis to edit back in later?"
Yeah, that's smart. Yeah, it's smart. I mean, anything because it's no different to like putting up a map of the fight like as it's happening after the fact, or like animations that are happening in the fight. You're just doing cutaways of the table.
Can I ask you a favor? Next time you're at the studio, take a photo of the table because I love looking at other tables. I love
It's
listen.
pretty great. It's a pretty great custom made
There's
table.
there's there's 26 studio actual play productions that aren't Roll 20 and Critical Role.
Hmm.
And I love looking at the tables. Like I love like seeing Quest Keep's table and they're like I'm always curious on
Yeah.
how other people are setting up their studios.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know,
yeah. Have you had AJ take you on a tour of the Winter's Tale studio? Like, is
not
she
yet.
taking a private tour of that? That'd be a good one as well because the Winter's Tale studio is fantastic too. Yeah, I'll take some photos of the table for you because they had it custom made for our specifications, and I had to have I got to have some input into the design of it and like how much room do I want behind the screen and how much on either side of me and how deep should it be for my minis and stuff. And then then it's like a flanged thing, obviously, to get the cameras in.
Yeah, yeah.
And so it's like two trapeziums back to back essentially, and
Oh, okay.
so the design of our table is kind of like hourglass shape. It's like a large
Yeah.
trapezium for them to sit along the sides of, and then me, and then like the short end is stuck to my short edge, and then
Okay.
I'm sitting in the middle of a trapezium here.
So this is how ours is. This is
Oh,
um
okay, yeah,
so we built it too. We built it ourselves. Just like actually I guess it's more like this. I'm just using a napkin for this. But yeah, we just cut into one and this is where I sit.
yeah,
And then my players on this side, my players and then cameras
and then cameras there
and
and
then the
there, yeah.
camera. Yeah.
Right, yeah. No, I was
But
it's
it's so
more
funny
like
because like
hourglass kind of shape. And
you can't really like go to a stage director like how does this work? They're like I don't know like
right?
this
Like,
has been around for like 4 years.
yeah, we're making this up. We're making this shit up and pretending, pretending like we know what we're doing.
Yeah.
But yeah, the funny thing is they made for their bottom half of the table. They made it so that it was enough room to sit two people on either side of it, and then they have an extra piece that like just extends that trapezium out to make it even bigger. So like another trapezium that goes on the bottom of that, and makes it a three-person on either side. And then they were like,
What is
when
a
it's just
trapezium?
us. Oh, sorry, I'm a maths nerd. So a trapezium is a quadrilateral where they have two parallel sides and two non-parallel sides.
Oh,
So
okay, we
imagine
call it trapezoid.
a trapezoid. Okay, a
Yeah,
trapezoid is
no,
a
no.
type. A
I just,
trapezium is a
I
type
was
of
like, listen,
trapezoid in mathematic terms.
I'm just gonna look stupid if I don't ask.
You gotta ask these things. Sometimes I'm using maths jargon. Yeah, a triangle with the top cut off. That's a trapezium.
Okay. Yeah,
Trapezoid is the American
yeah.
term. I think in mathematical terms, a trapezium is a type of trapezoid, and trapezoids are a
Oh,
wide. Not
but
getting into it.
a trapezoid isn't always a trapezium. Okay.
Something like that. It's like the frogs and toads situation.
Yeah.
So basically, yeah, they've got a table where they designed it so that they could have it for the most part just two on one side, two on the other side, and me in the middle. And then when they have a guest star, when they have another person at the table, they can add on this extra little extension to the table. And then as soon as they actually got it made and was in the studio space, they were like, I think we'll just leave it always set up because it's just better to have the space to spread out. And so
Yeah, yeah.
they went to all this extra trouble of like having this bit removable and then don't use it to actually remove it.
I love it.
Frogs and toads have to go look that situation up. All toads are frogs, not all frogs are toads. That's what I was getting at.
Boom, done. Don't have to look up anything.
Don't have to look it up. I'm your lookup right here. I got all the information. I got
I looked it up for you.
full of weird facts like that. Partly from being a dungeon master, you find yourself just going down a
Oh, I
rabbit
know.
hole of Wikipedia or something.
That's one of my that's one of my favorite things about being a dungeon master is like all the weird stuff I get to learn from it.
Like looking up things that where the FBI agent that's looking into your Google history is going to be like, I don't even know what he's doing because he's kind of
Yeah.
he started looking things up that made me think he was looking up a bomb, but then he went on to like how long does it take a corpse to decay, and now he's into
trying to figure out-
Dutch windmills, and he's talking about the history of the
Can you
Renaissance
inflate a
now.
cow?
Yeah,
How much helium can a cow contain?
what would happen if a cow absorbed a grenade, but the grenade didn't go? I don't know what he's doing. Yeah, Dungeon
I know.
Master search histories or something else.
I like how like the FBI probably has like, is this someone to watch? No, it's fucking nerd.
It's just a nerd. It's just a DM nerd. Yeah, oh man, that reminds me of a whole other thing about growing weed, but I won't go there. Instead, we'll talk about like what is the present day of Total Party Chill and Start Playing? What are you currently working on? What is the biggest kind of thing that's happening right now for both of those?
So for Total Party Chill, we've spent a long time like doing these like really fun kind of like save the world stories. We just wrapped up, our we're actually about to start recording again. This game is Cursed, the second season. The idea is 4 players get sucked into the world of D&D and have to find their way home. Amazing
like
plot
stuff.
twist,
sort of isekai kind of stuff. I like it.
Yeah, the people in the comments on the last episode were like, screaming, throwing things at the wall. Like the plot twist was really fun, and so that made me a lot of joy. But we're taking a break from like Save the World kind of stuff, and we're doing this new show which is called Treasure Hunt. And the idea is the dragons have all died, they've all been slayed, but one dragon died far from his lair, and nobody ever found it, which means his entire horde is left for the taking. And nobody knows about it except these 5 heroes, and they're on a quest to get filthy fucking rich.
And the horde, people refer to it as two-piece.
Yeah, right?
They're looking for the two-piece.
It was funny too because I watched the live action One Piece because I've never seen One Piece, but I watched it and I was like, Jesus Christ!
Yeah,
everything's been done. Everything's
I was
like
done.
This. I know. It was like, you didn't know One Piece was about a treasure hunt? I was like, how would I know that?
Yeah, exactly.
Because it's One Piece. I'm like.
I was like, I bet I knew, just from the zeitgeist, I kind of knew that One Piece was about pirates, and that's all I knew about it until the Netflix show came out, and I started watching it. I was like, oh, okay, now I get it.
Yeah.
Very good show. I get that a lot, where like I'll be doing something, I'll get to the end of some sort of arc, or like I'll do a big reveal in some game, a home game or a public game, and somebody will make a reference to something and be like, oh, it's like the scene from so-and-so, or it's like the arc from so-and-so, or it's like so-and-so's character in blah, blah, blah. And I'll be like, more often than not, I'll be like, never seen it. Don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Like the number of times I steal things that I've never seen.
Yeah. There are times where I will tell my players, like, I'm watching this right now and I'm reading this right now. And they'll know that thing will heavily influence what I'm actually. But there's so much media that you're going to come up with the same ideas that already exist.
Yeah.
But I like the idea of low stakes. We're not here to save the world. We're here just to get rich, and it just sounded like a fun story, and I had it kind of mapped out in my head.
That does sound fun. I like that. I like that not every story has to be about like save the world from some apocalyptic event, because usually in my home games for like long running campaigns, I do have in mind some apocalyptic thing that happens if they fail in their mission, like some big bad evil guy is going to take over or whatever, and then when that party falls apart or stops playing or whatever, I'm left with the predicament of, oh crap, now I've got to come up with some other way to not have that thing that I was setting up suddenly take over.
Well, what's so funny is they know that to stay on track, and so the thing is I keep throwing them the kind of running joke of the show so far in all our recordings is all of the things that would show up in a regular D&D adventure that people were like, well, we got to save this person, that sucks, we got to go though. They're just turning down side quests left and right. Pirate invasion, not our problem.
I had that in a game the other day, because there's sort of this on-running joke where one of the guys who is a lizard folk, he's been trying to get back to the beast plains for so long, and there's this portal that only opens on a full moon, and for 3 full moons in a row they were on their way to the portal, and then I threw a side quest at them, and they were forced to divert, and then they missed it, and they were like, next moon, next month we'll get there, next month we'll get there, and eventually it was nothing else is getting in the way. I don't care if Rob throws a damsel in distress right in the middle of our path, nothing at all. And sure enough, they got through the portal and they got to the other side, and then once they landed on the other side of the portal, he was like, right, now I'm finding my family, and then he got distracted with other things. And it's like, no, stop distracting us. And so in this last session, they came across a fisherman that was fishing into a river, and then some other one, he was a bit apprehensive of seeing them, and then another guy came up to meet him, and he goes, come on, hurry up with that fish, the guy's condition's deteriorating. And I just threw that out, and then immediately before anybody else in the party could say anything, the guy who was kept getting distracted was like, no follow-up questions, nobody ask him about the guy, nobody ask about the conditions, we are going to meet my family. It was like, you're too smart for me now. You're seeing it whenever I'm putting.
I
my
love a
little
good
plot
running
hooks.
joke.
Yeah, it's good stuff. It's good stuff. Trying to just keep your players off kilter and off the
Yeah.
main quest. I always tease my Twitch Tales, my interactive game that I run on Twitch. I always tease my chat that like the world is a living world and it continues with or without you. So
Yep.
like yes, you can
Yeah.
choose to do this or that, but like something else is gonna keep going.
Exactly. You know, we do this game usually kind of in between campaigns, kind of like as a one-off, and it's this kind of like thing I wrote together. Ideally, like everyone just plays as like a different power, a different kingdom,
Right,
a
yeah.
different like head of state, something like that. And I just say like, hey, you've all come together to decide on like the outcome of this. Like you all need to vote. And I give everyone like secrets that like things that they want to accomplish and like rumors they've heard of others and like their agendas they need to
Yeah.
accomplish. And have you ever played diplomacy?
Yes. Yeah.
So it's like diplomacy and like and like secret Hitler tied together.
Right. Okay.
And
Yeah.
so they just go out and they meet one on one and they kind of
Yeah.
talk and then their outcome becomes like law and that kind of dictates like how the players will experience the world. And
Yeah.
so it's
Right.
kind of fun when they get to play that. They're like, wait, this is bad for us though. I'm like, I know.
Yeah. But individually, sort of like
Yeah.
the what do you call it, the prisoner's paradox or something, that like individual
Prisoner's Dilemma.
the prisoner's dilemma. Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
these are things that individually I should be going for, but like as a group that makes for the worst outcome for us all. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
You gotta that's a dilemma I gave you. Well done. I love introducing moral quandaries and stuff.
And with Start Playing, we just have some really cool partnerships that we're excited to kind of launch. We've been working really closely with the Adventure Zone on kind of a
Oh, nice.
promotional, they're spokespeople for us. And then, next is Brennan Lee Mulligan, which is really, really cool.
Oh, that's cool.
So that's been fantastic. And so, and then like obviously we're building stuff every day. Like
Yeah.
we're here in the office. We spend all day like figuring out like some new tools we're gonna build for our game masters, which I'm like
Nice.
so excited for. If there's any game masters watching or listening, batch scheduling is coming. We've just kind of wrapped up a brainstorm around it. We're very excited.
That's good.
So, and then of course going to all the conventions. I love it.
Yeah, cons. I love cons. I
It's
love
full
travel
work
in
now.
general, and I love. Yeah, I know, right? And you can be like, it's a business trip. Yeah, I've recently decided like I'm gonna try and hit as many cons as I can, just because I love traveling, and as much as I love New Zealand, it is so far away from anyone else, and so nobody's coming here. Nobody's coming to visit, and so I've got to go if I want to like collaborate with people or like check out other people's studios and like do any kind of like meeting up with
You
people.
know what? I told you at Gen Con, if you come to San Francisco, you gotta let me know.
Yeah, man.
We'll do
next
something.
time I'm
Yeah.
in around California, I'll definitely be in touch.
Yeah.
What was I going to say? So we're a little shorter on time today, everybody. Just in the chat, just letting you know, we're going to wrap things up in about half an hour. So start getting your questions in now. Any of your questions that you have for me or Devon, and I'll try and make some time for them at the end before we get into wrapping up. So the way to do that, I am watching you guys in the chat a little bit, but like I've got very important, interesting guests to chat with, and so sometimes your questions go a little bit by the wayside. So in order to make sure you don't get forgotten about, make sure to redeem them with your copper pieces. It's just 50 copper pieces to redeem a ask a question, and it goes into a queue that I can then check at the end. So any questions for us, please get them in now. Let's move into talking about the future of these things that you run, Total Party Chill and Start Playing Games. What's in the near future for both of those things?
For Start Playing, in the near future is a lot of growth. Like we've kind of haven't put a lot of gas on the fire yet, as far as like promotions and like growing, because we want to do it kind of slowly as we figure out some core functionality stuff. But like we're going to be doing internationalization, where that means that like you will choose the currency that you're being charged in, or that you're charging people in.
Right.
We're going to be having support teams in other countries that we have a large player base. It's going to be hard to have German GMs that are running games in German
Yeah.
advertising to players in German without a support team that can speak
Yeah.
German.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, kids
There's also
games.
like the
Oh,
the fact of like international payments, and like how does like your income work if you're getting a huge chunk of your income from an international site and it's from international people. Like there's all sorts of
yeah.
like international currency laws and like
Mhm.
income and like taxation stuff that might be
Yeah.
something
And
to
so,
have to
like,
look into.
it's it's rough when you get paid. Well, so, it's actually it's good depending on where you are, right? Like sometimes
Yeah.
it's great to be paid in U.S. dollars because the
Yeah.
conversion rate is
Yeah,
awesome.
the conversion rate's good
But
sometimes.
like if we can make it easier, so like you don't have to worry about your bank doing the conversion charge and
Yeah.
like pay you out in your local currency. Kids games, that's a big thing that we're going to be running towards is
Oh
making it
yeah.
easier. And then in person, is another thing that we're
Mm.
looking for. And these are the things that we hope to do over the next like 2-3 years.
Nice. How does the in-person stuff? How is that going to work? Do you imagine? What are the changes that are needing to be put into place with the stat playing platform to make that work? Because there's a whole bunch of other
It's
stuff. If you're putting strangers together in person, there's a whole bunch
yeah.
of like safety things. And,
It's such a tall question that like we're probably going to start with some tests in some places
hmm
and see how that works, and then like compliance is different everywhere, but for the
Yeah.
most part, like um, once the deals are made, but like we don't want to be just compliant. We want to make sure that like we are doing well by like our
Oh yeah.
users and our players, and so
Yeah.
um, it's we haven't actually sat down to have the like what's it going to take. It's just like one of those like cool, like we need to like figure out how to do this, and this should be something we do in the next 2 years.
hmm
Um, so no hard plans yet. There's just a lot of like, I think we should do this. I think we should do this too.
Yeah.
Probably like background checks, two-factor authentication, phone numbers,
Yeah. Yeah.
things like that that will be like
And
kind of baseline.
there's already like review systems in place with stat playing
Yeah,
so that people can just like read first, like, oh yeah, this guy's got a hell of a lot of reviews that say they made me feel safe, blah blah blah.
yeah.
Yeah, that makes
And
sense.
for let's see, for Total Party Chill, we're doing a lot of like new content where we have like our kind of like evergreen shows, but we're doing a
hmm
lot of like, hey, let's film a show in a weekend and
Yeah.
let's make us, a 6 episode series of something. So we're doing that with Adults on Brooms.
hmm
We're doing
Is that
that.
like
We're
kids
doing
on
some
Is
stuff
it
with
like kids on bikes?
yeah. Instead of Kids on Brooms, it's Adults on Brooms. I love the pitch was, a non-turf Harry Potter world where when you're a young person you get magic,
Yeah.
but instead 4 30-year-olds get access to magic and nobody knows
Yeah.
why, and they can't go to magic school, so they have to go to the local community college. Um, so it's like
Community college magic school, but they're like
yeah,
they've
so
got like like quarterly life crisis situations. They've got like
yeah.
they've got like mortgages and pets at home and stuff, and
Well, think about
one's
this,
going
right?
through a
Like
divorce. And,
most like magical school stories are like, wow, home life sucks, like Percy
yeah,
Jackson, Harry Potter,
yeah,
like it's all that like this could change your life because you're young and like your emotions are so rampant, but when you're old, that's really when magic could change your, like I just imagine like, oh my gosh, like I just don't have enough time in the day, like there's just so Phil at work is just the work, and so magic feels like it could be more life
could be
changing when
more
you're
life
30.
changing when you're like, oh god, I just want this, and then you're like, oh, I've got the magic to actually make that happen. And then
Yeah.
very much like a be careful what you wish for kind of stories. There's lots of potential for that as well. Like if you suddenly give magic to somebody who's never had it their whole life.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Um,
like that.
and
There's a lot of
so
potential there.
in some live shows, is some stuff we've been toying around with. We've been talking with this
Yeah.
really interesting group of it's kind of a production company for comedians, and we've been kind of toying around with the idea of doing kind of like comedians play D&D
Mm.
at some live events, and so that's
Nice.
just like some things we're kind of toying out. We're like, oh, this could be a fun thing, and I love a project. I love just trying out new
Hmm.
stuff, and so
Yeah.
that's really fun. And then of course Kickstarters. Like
Hmm.
I made a card game, and it's really fun. And
Nice.
I maybe did you play it at Gen Con? I played it with a
I'm
bunch of
not
people
sure.
at Gen Con.
I don't not
Um,
to my knowledge. No.
but I ran it for a bunch of people at Gen Con. I let other people run it, and just like seeing the laughing and the hysteria that came from
Yeah.
like watching people engage with it made me really happy. So
That's
I
good.
decided I'm going to kickstart that next year.
Nice. I was
Yeah.
I'm actually working on a similar thing myself. I'm going to be working
Ooh.
on a Kickstarter next year. That's I'm still working on the specifics of what it's going to be, but it's going to be basically to test the waters of how Kickstarter works, because
Yeah. Same.
I have in mind, like, my big Kickstarter is probably eventually going to be like a setting book for my homebrew world,
Yeah.
and all of my house many house rules that basically
Yeah.
makes D&D barely recognizable as D&D anymore because I changed this and I changed that. So eventually I'll probably release all of that, but I don't want to do that as my first thing. So I was like, I'll do a smaller Kickstarter of like an adventure
Yeah.
module or a card game.
Oh,
And I'm
okay.
working on
So
both.
we should talk offline one of these days because
Yeah.
like I have a rolling doc of like things I've learned from other people that did
Oh, mate.
Kickstarters and like little tips
Yeah.
and tricks and
I
yeah,
would love to hear it
We'll
all.
do some info.
Yeah, for sure. For sure, I love it. So that's like in the actual like future of both of those things. Let's talk about like hypothetical future, like blue sky way off in the distance. What would you love for these things to become eventually? Like, what's your ideal future for both of these?
So for Total Park Show, like the thing that I've always noticed is like we love to like be innovative in like how we tell stories and like how we change things. Um, I remember once we did. Do you know the game Keep Talking and Nobody Gets Hurt?
Yes. Yeah.
So having played that, I was like, this would be great if I found a way to make this work for D&D. And so I went and I bought a bunch of circuit command buttons, switches and all this, and I made a little circuit board.
Nice.
And I made an instruction manual that was like how to do different things, but it was all written in kind of gobbledygook. It's like, well, turn the flux capacitor down to an element of 12. And then there was a what was it, Airships for Dummies that translated that book, and so the entire table had to work together. And the box that you put your hands in, you couldn't see if you were controlling it. Someone else could see from the other side.
I love that.
So everyone at the table had to work together to solve it. And I love stuff like that. So I always want to like push that envelope. But if you were to tell me what's the dream of Total Park Show, I think it's these games, but like live studio audience, and like. Like 20 to 30% of it is animated afterwards. Very much like Harmon Quest.
Right. Yes.
I felt like that was a really great approach to actual plays, and that's something I want to, that's my like one of my blue skies of
it's those sorts of things are ones that I love. Like I love the our sort of point of difference, I guess, with Viva La Dirt League is like the fact that we take what we do at the table and then we do green screen cutaways of like acting it out. And similar to how they do with the animated one with Hammond Quest and the puppet ones with Tales from the Stinky Dragon.
Stinky Dragon, yeah.
Yeah, like I love any time that you're telling a story with D&D, because one of the things that kind of like blew my mind when I first realized it, or maybe I heard it from someone about D&D and how D&D is a unique medium for telling stories, is that for the most part, especially if for people who aren't streaming, like people who aren't telling, like for the most people who play D&D are the storytellers, the writers, the actors, and the audience. It's the only medium where you are writing a story as you go for yourself. You're telling the story, and you're the audience for the story. And so it's such a unique thing to do. So I think when you then turn that medium and open it up to an actual audience that isn't part of the creation process, they're just like watching it, or they're just watching it after the fact. Anything that you can do to be like, this is the story and this is the D&D medium of telling the story, and then we're going to also convert that into a way that is more traditionally how one person would tell a story, like with scripted things to cut away to, or with puppetry, or with animation and stuff like that. So I think I tend to gravitate towards those things where they take what was made during the D&D game and then they tell like a story out of it, like put it into a more
they like add this layer to
story.
It.
Yeah, add some of the production, because then it also removes some of the time sink that can come from actual plays.
Yeah,
because they can be fantastic stories, but I can't keep up with 4 hours a week of this fantastic story.
That's too much.
So if you take the 4 hours a week game that you played and you edit it down, or you then take it away and write a script from it and tell us the story that happened from the thing, then hell yeah, I'm going to watch Vox Machina, because then I can keep up with the actual story, and I don't have to watch an entire 700 hours of thing to get that same story. So I love that stuff. So I love to hear that Total Party Chill might be you'd love to head that way with it.
Yeah, and then start playing. I want 1 million game masters. Being able to use our platform. There's what Hasbro estimates there's a TAM, total addressable market, of 80 million people that are playing tabletop role-playing games.
80
D&D
million.
owns, D&D owns 40 million of those players. Um,
Yeah.
so half the market's them, but but again, like, this is kind of their estimated TAM. But we also realize that 30% of our users have said that this is the first time they've ever interacted with the hobby. Um, so we feel that there's probably even more than that,
Oh
and
yeah.
we would love to, like, have a million GMs on our platform, running paid games. We think that'd be amazing.
And how on Stat Playing, how well integrated are all the different TTRPGs? Like, is it just a case of like, hey, we're just setting up the game, and then what you're playing is up to you? Like, or
Yeah,
is it just as easy
we
to
actually,
arrange a game of Dread as it is to arrange a game of
yeah.
D&D?
Dread's a little bit harder because it's such a hard game remotely,
Yeah.
but like,
Yeah.
but we try to do a lot with publishers. Like, any publisher that wants to work with us, that has the bandwidth to do so. We're working with Evil Hat, we're working with Paizo, we're working with
Mm-hmm.
Renegade, hopefully Pellegrin. Yeah, we're working with also VGTs like Alchemy and Roll20,
Right. Yeah.
and Foundry. And their goal is like, hey, we want more people playing our games or on our platform, and so we find ways to help with accommodate that with events where GMs get games for free in exchange for running it during that weekend.
Awesome.
Also, it's a great opportunity. It's like, I really want to be playing. I want to play like an Onyx Path game. I really want to play this Chronicles of Darkness. And you could participate in that weekend and get players coming from the publisher and that are already coming to the site. So we do a lot to like help out like every type of tabletop RPG game.
That's amazing. Yeah, and there's a lot out there, and more every day. There was one.
Yeah.
There was one I saw. Sarah, Pixies and Pins.
Yes.
She's the one that always pops up in my mind when I think of like wacky out there TTRPGs, because she's constantly playing anything but D&D essentially. Lots and lots of one-page RPGs. I've played all sorts of weird things with her. I sent her one a little while back that I saw because I was like, hey, if you don't know this exists, you need to. It was just something that came up that was called like, Let Those Mermaids Touch Your Dick Maybe, I think is what I think the name of the TTRPG was that, and it was like, and to play the TTRPG you needed a dildo and some glitter, and then some sticky hands, I think, like those ones that you can slap on stuff.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think it was like you put the dildo in the middle of the table and cover it in glitter, and then you've got to take turns like trying to slap it, and then you count the pieces of glitter that you managed to get stuck to your hand or something. But like, you're in the middle of that, you're telling a story of like being mermaids coming like not like Little Mermaid, but like sirens
Yeah.
that are like seductive and
Yeah.
dragging you into the water and like luring sailors, horny sailors to their doom
To their
by looking
doom.
like sexy people. And so you're being like sexy mermaids and you're trying to lure these sailors to their doom by like grabbing their dicks and stuff. And I was like,
So
yep, there's
funny.
really just every TTRPG in the world, just like everything's out there.
I know.
There's new ones every
I
day.
love it when I see things like Alice is Missing, right? Like, that is a truly innovative tabletop
incredible,
RPG.
right? I haven't played it yet. It's
And
been on my list for a while. I want to play, but like I've just hearing it, I'm like, that's incredible.
yeah,
What an idea.
like things like that, things like Dread. Like, there's so many like innovations that come in, and like that's the stuff I love. I love it when I see, like, again, like, just like Action Plays, the medium changing, like how people are telling stories to like how they're building games.
Incredible stuff. All right, we shall start to head into the wrap up so that we don't go over time for you. So I will open up the requests queue here, and we'll start to ask the audience's questions here. If you want to get your questions in, don't forget to do so now. Firstly, we got a question from these are from 5 days ago, so I think I answered those already. I don't think they were for you. Somebody got in real early. Centauri asked an hour ago, what is the newest game, TTRPG or otherwise, that you've given a go, and in 13 words or less, why was it awesome or clunky?
I'm gonna do Death in Space, and in 13 words or less. Read in an hour, played in 15 minutes. Laughed, cried, got scared. Oh, that's 14. Damn it.
No, you
but
didn't use the whole thing. You had a couple fingers you left.
Oh yeah,
So that
okay,
was under 14.
but yeah, that was really fun. Because I was like,
What
wow,
was it called?
I
Death in
learned the
Space?
game. Yeah, Death in Space, and I was like, oh, I learned the game. I was like,
Oh,
I
nice.
got everyone started in 15 minutes to
Yeah.
play. Um, so and I love it. I love games like that are so easy to like ramp up and start playing. Oh.
Nice. Yeah, that's that. You did it. You said the thing. Last game I played just last night. I was round at a friend's for a board game night. So my last game I played was what was it called again? Monster Menagerie something. It was Circus Menagerie. Basically, it was from one of the guys who designed Magic the Gathering. And you can kind of tell his influence because you have land cards like terrain cards, and then you have monsters that are to do with those terrain cards. So you might have like enchanted forest, and you might have dryads, and then you might have like the air as one of the airy is one of the terrains, and like griffins might be in there, and then the dreamlands and like dream catchers and stuff. And you're playing the terrain, you're playing the cards, you're playing the monsters. The monsters each have danger levels, so at the end of the round you roll to see how dangerous they are, and if they escape, if their danger level increase is above the number of cage tokens that you have by the end of the round, then they break loose, cool. And then they cause a bunch of damage. So you have to use some of your money to pay for the damage caused. But then at the end of that round, you take all of the monsters and put them back in your menagerie, and those go to be victory points because your menagerie is better than other people's menagerie because you've got all the monsters and stuff. It was quite involved and took almost the whole game for me to work out what I was doing, but I ended up winning. But it's like one of those beginner luck kind of things, and it was quite fun. It was very.
I love that.
And I can't remember what it's called. Something about monsters, menageries, and freak shows or something. Joe Baby asked, "Is Start Playing just US based, or do you have DMs all over the world?"
We got DMs all over the world. We got players all over the world. Mostly English-speaking countries and players. So New Zealand, Australia, United Kingdom, Canada. And then we have, a handful of bilingual players that are, like from Germany, Italy, that are playing in games as well. But almost all games currently are like advertised, run in English.
Nice. And you're with a look to expand your player base around the world once you've got the help for it. That makes sense. Jurassic Spark asks, by the way, Jurassic Spark, is that a reference to the Chris and Jack sketch about the Welcome to July 6th Park? No? Never mind. Jurassic Spark asks, question for Devon, what would you recommend for someone who wants to start GMing but doesn't have a lot of resources, i.e. Roll20?
Well, I mean, one of the fifth most popular ways people run games and start playing is Theater of the Mind. And so if you are okay with running games Theater of the Mind and not using, maps and such, then I would say, like, do that. But if you want to use Virtual Tabletop, then play games with people who use Virtual Tabletop, because that is the best way to learn is from someone who uses it. We actually even saw Roll20 did a test with us where they realized people's sentiment score of playing on a VTT is higher after they play with a professional dungeon master because they know it that much better.
Yeah.
And then I would also say buy Return of the Lazy Dungeon Master. It's like it's my favorite GM tip book. It's like that's one of my favorite. That's like this thing. I think if you want to get your GM a good present for Christmas and they don't have this book, you should give them that book. It's like $20.
There you go.
Full of great advice.
Somebody send me that book to my PO box, please. There you go. Don't actually have that book yet. It's one of the ones that I've seen advertised online before, and I was like, oh, that looks fun. I never actually got around to looking at it.
Someone touted it to me, and I got it. I was like, oh, this is genius. There's like a lot of stuff in there that was like very unique that I had been doing before.
Yeah, good stuff. The Fancy Unicorn asks, I would love a short rest soundbite. Fancy's an editor, one of my editors that works on making things into shorts, YouTube shorts and Insta Reels and TikToks and stuff. So in, let's say, 20 seconds to a minute, could Devon maybe do an elevator pitch for a DM to join Start Playing?
Yeah. Fancy, I'm going to do you one better. 30 seconds for both a game master and a player. listen, if you've always wanted to play Dungeons and Dragons or any other tabletop RPG, Start Playing is the easiest way. You can spend time going to Discord servers, Facebook groups, you can scour Reddit all you want, but if you want to play a game tonight and find one just as quickly, Start Playing makes it easy. You can search games by the system, time of day, and even experience, and you find the game that's going to be the right fit. GMs have reviews, so you can see if they have the right play style, so you can finally start playing. And if you're a game master and you're ready to take the leap and become a professional, check out Start Playing. It is the easiest way to start playing games as a professional dungeon master.
Look at this. Talking about professional dungeon master. Professional soundbiter, apparently.
I'm a professional shill.
Professional shill. Professional knowing how to all of his search engine optimization that he talked about before. Thank you for that, Devon. The friend of the fiend asks, what is the first piece of advice you would have for a new player? So a brand new player to TTRPGs, let's say.
If your GM does a session 0 does campaign prep, you're in safe hands because it shows they're listening.
Yeah.
But don't get caught up in your own head. Like, say the first thing that comes out, and realize that like it's okay to be wrong. It's okay to get something messed up. The idea is to react to things and have fun with it rather than be like, what is the best thing I should do here? It's not a board game where you have to optimize for the best possible outcome or everyone's gonna be upset. If you have a great GM, they're gonna help lead you to water.
Exactly.
And so that's what I recommend.
And I would say your character's gonna change. Like people go in with a character being like, oh, I'm a Batman type. And I'm going to be dark and brooding and Batman vigilante type, and that'll be how you play it for a little while, and then you'll very quickly discover that your character changes as you play. You get thrust into situations. Yeah, you get thrust into situations where you have to act out of character or out of and it's you find, oh, that's actually more fun to play it this way or to play it that way. So don't worry about it. Your character's going to change. Your voice is going to change. You don't have to stick with any sort of consistency to the character. You could switch it around. And another piece of advice is, if you hate the character after 3 sessions, kill it or make him retire and roll a new character. It's fine.
Yeah, it's okay.
You're not locked in. You're there to have fun. If you're not having fun, that's the only way to play D&D wrong is to not have fun with it.
Yeah.
So just enjoy yourselves, but not at the cost of other people's enjoyment. Trika asks, I didn't know about Start Playing. That's such an awesome platform. A friend of mine is a bit insecure. A friend of mine, in inverted commas, is a bit insecure as a DM. But could somebody get started on Start Playing even if they aren't sure if other people would want to pay for their games or not?
So this is pretty universal advice, right? The best way to do something is to start, even a small step. Like I always say that you will never know unless you try. And if you want your best foot forward, play with other professional GMs and see how they run, and figure out hey, could I run this? And a lot of people hear oh yeah, if I play with one and I realize I could run the same type of game this person did. I am worth being a professional GM. Mm-hmm. That's a great way to figure out if you can be a pro GM. It's just play with others and figure out how you stack up.
There is a time when Albert Einstein couldn't count to 10, and there was a time when Michael Jordan had never touched a basketball, and there was a time that Leonardo da Vinci had never held a paintbrush. Everybody has to start somewhere, and you're never going to get better at something unless you start at something. So, and you never know.
And your first things will always suck.
Yeah. You're also never going to know how good you are at a thing until you start doing the thing either. It took me a long time to realize that I'm a good DM, despite everybody telling me I really like your games and really like this and this and this, because I didn't have a lot of experience with other GMs, and it was like putting myself out there and playing with a lot and just hearing feedback from people and playing with other GMs and going, oh yeah, I can see why people like my games because I would have done that differently or I would have done this, and you learn from experience of playing with people and having people play with you, and so you're going to get better just by doing it. And at first maybe people don't want to pay whatever you want for your games, but that's the nature of a market. You're okay, people aren't interested in buying my games at $50 a head without any experience. Maybe I'll drop it down to $20 a head for a game or two and see if people are interested in that. So give it a go and hope for the best. The last question we've got in is from Honeybee. Honeybee360 asks, I am very new to D&D. It always seemed very intimidating before, but I got really into Baldur's Gate 3 and really enjoyed that. It seems like the character I want to start with is apparently very stereotypical. Question is, how annoyed will a GM be because, another player wants to play this? How original.
Yeah. Here's the thing, like, tropes exist for a reason. Like, I wouldn't be annoyed. But like also like, the GM will tell you like what the story is, and does the character fit with the story? And if it does, then like it's perfect. So that's always like, that's part of like this is a collaboration, right? If the GM says, hey, we're gonna be heroes and we're gonna be in a wild space and it'll be a Spelljammer adventure, and you want to be this character that doesn't fit with that, then you just make a different character. But you shouldn't be concerned that someone's gonna be annoyed that you have a character that seems like a starting character. We have all been there. We've all started out that human fighter, and then 10 years later we're playing a BMXing witch from the future. Like that's just the nature of the game.
Very specific there, Devon. Very specific. Yeah, absolutely. But also to sort of the other point as well, like you could give me 4 different characters, hell, 10 different characters that are all human champion fighters with a soldier background, and I'll give you 10 different characters. Like there's so much more to it than like the class and race and background combinations. It's how you play it, and how you play that character is going to be different to how anybody else has played that character. And if it's not, that's the thing that's wrong, not the choice of character. It's your choices in character. So like just think flesh out that person's backstory, and then you've got a different character. Like think about where they came from, why are they an adventurer, who are their family, what is their drive in life, what do they want from life, why are they out adventuring rather than farming.
And give your dungeon master tons of daggers.
Yeah, give your dungeon master
my sister's missing. I'm scared of rats.
I'm scared of this thing, and like I can't turn left.
My mom's a witch.
Yeah. Like I don't know who the person was that was responsible for the event that happened in my town when I was growing up, and when I was 12, a spark in the sky suddenly blotted out the sun and something else happened. Blah blah blah. You can just like come up with stuff and be like, is all of this cool? And just like give it to your dungeon master, and they'll be like, oh, that's a bit weird.
Lactose intolerant.
I haven't thought about that, but I'll try and
gluten
weave it
intolerant.
I'm allergic to pollen. I'm deathly allergic to this and this. Just give you a guy like a 6 in Constitution.
I have asthma.
I have all of these problems. I kind of want to do that one day to make the squishiest tank, like the glassiest cannon possible, and make like a wizard, but with like a 5 in Constitution, and just be like,
imagine a barbarian. A barbarian that's like, I would like to
rage. I'd like to rage, but I can only hold my rage for 1 round and not get a level of exhaustion as I just have to. Yeah, absolutely. All right. Thank you very much for all your questions, people. That was much appreciated. Devon, thank you very much for being here. I want to wrap things up so that I'm not keeping you longer than I had time for. Where can people find you and your stuff if they are just tuning in now?
Yeah. You can find me and everything I do with Total Party Chill on all socials, Total Party Chill. And then you could find everything from Start Playing with the same thing, startplaying.com. You can find us on all socials as well. Start Playing, the easiest way to find a game, group, or game master.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And if you are from Devon's communities and you don't know who I am and I have been the whole time, I am Robert Hartley, GM. I'm a professional full-time Dungeons & Dragons content creator. I'm most well known for being the GM for a comedy group called Viva La Dirt League, but I'm also a GM all over the internet in my own right at Robert Hartley GM. So check out my stuff, and you might find some things in there that you like, especially because somebody mentioned getting into D&D through Baldur's Gate 3. I've got a series of shorts on YouTube that are about the differences between the video game and the tabletop game to keep in mind if you're going from one to the other. And suddenly you'll be like, oh, this isn't how it usually plays out in the video game. So I've got a series of shorts on YouTube about that.
Thank you for having me, man. This has been a blast.
It's been an absolute pleasure. It's been an absolute pleasure. I love these. I love this short rest series because I get a chance to just sit down with somebody I admire for a couple hours and have a chat and a hangout. Is there anyone online on Twitch that you would want to raid? I always like to give it the option to my
let's
guest.
See. No homies are online. It looks like. Let me expand this. I got nothing.
You got nothing online right now? Let's see who's online. We got. Speaking of Baldur's Gate, we've got the Watcher online. Maybe we send a raid over there. We've got lots of just reruns. Lots of people doing reruns. Let's send you off to Adam from Viva la Dirt League. We've got the Watcher doing some perfect. Baldur's Gate 3. I can't vouch for whereabouts in the game he is. So if you are avoiding spoilers, if you haven't finished the game yet, he is on his second or third playthrough, I think. So head in for the raid and then dip out if he's too far ahead in the game for you. All right, Devon, this has been an absolute blast. Thank you for being here, and we shall chat off screen sometime about Kickstarters and things.
Yes.
And I'll also be in touch next time I decide that I'm heading into California ways.
Yeah. Oh, it's gonna be so much fun.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, team.
Wait. Stop. Before you go, let me know your favorite part of the episode in the comments below. Thank you.